Hello, I'm Art Hartinger with Rennie Public Law Group. The CalPELRA conference pivoted, of course, in the light of the pandemic and invited participating sponsors to post videos. So we thought it would be great if you could get to know the Rennie Public Law Group investigations team. So I'm going to be interviewing three members of our investigations practice group, Linda Ross and Ruth Bond, who are partners, and Senior Associate Jamal Anderson. I hope these are just a few of our investigators available to you. And I hope you get to know our law firm a little bit better. You can visit our website at www.renniepubliclawgroup.com, and also follow us on LinkedIn. I think you'll find there's some interesting content on both platforms. It is my pleasure to introduce Jamal Anderson, one of the newest members of Rennie Public Law Group, to the CalPELRA community. And so again, we're talking to people to learn a little bit, to introduce them to the community and to learn a little bit more about them. Jamal, your resume was of course just fascinating to us, and that's why we were really interested in having you join us, and we're thrilled that you did. You were a deputy district attorney in the San Mateo County District Attorney's Office for a number of years, and did nearly 24 jury trials, essentially supervised DA investigations going on in the context of that litigation. So let me just ask you, how come we got so lucky and we were able to get you to come to Rennie Public Law Group?
Well, I appreciate that. And I got lucky. And the reason that I got lucky is because I was able to find a firm and a place to work with RPLG that is really fundamentally committed to the public interest. And my background is really both with my time as a district attorney, as well as my time in Washington, D.C. With a number of members of Congress and the former mayor. And so I wanted to go somewhere where there were people who were fundamentally committed to good government, making sure that things worked as well as they could for those who need it the most. And I found a home in RPLG.
Oh, great. Well, we try. Hopefully you can make it better. One thing that jumps off your resume, of course, is this district attorney experience, which seems like a natural for you to be doing investigations and to be a leader in our investigations group. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the DA's office in San Mateo, and what did you find rewarding, and anything that you would like to share with us about that practice.
Sure. I really loved my time as a district attorney. I decided to become a district attorney well before I went to law school because I fundamentally was committed to helping people. And I was fortunate enough to end up in a district attorney's office in the county where I grew up in San Mateo. The role of a district attorney obviously is fascinating, but the thing that I found most rewarding was being able to help people in need and bring some measure of justice for folks who had been wronged. And so throughout my tenure as a district attorney, I obviously handled a number of trials, rotated through a number of units, including preliminary hearings, but also within the office, worked on a variety of cases from domestic violence, misdemeanors to general felonies, and the ability to work with a broad cross-section of the community, from judges to other attorneys, witnesses, law enforcement officers, I think really has prepared me for this role doing investigations. One of the primary responsibilities that we have is to follow the facts. And that's not just from the time that we review a police report to make a filing decision, that's all the way up and through trial, potentially, if we get there. And so when you follow the facts, you are open to the possibility that perhaps you don't have enough information to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And as a result, if you need to adjust, if you need to make a decision to dismiss a case or seek additional information, you're open to those things. And in the same way, when we are conducting investigations on behalf of our clients, we really want to follow the facts. We want to be fair and impartial. We want to be open to the possibility that what a client may tell us might not be true, or that it is true. And if it is, we want to be able to follow the facts to make sure that we can demonstrate that. And so I very much enjoyed my time as a DA, and obviously it prepared me in a lot of ways for this new role.
Right. And I understand that to be an actual fundamental responsibility of a prosecutor. It's not just go win. It's mete out justice. And if you encounter information that suggests that you're the client, or rather the defendant, is innocent in some way, then you have a duty to take action to make sure justice occurs. So I agree. I think that translates quite well to our mission here at Rennie Public Law Group. Another thing that pops off your resume, of course, is this Washington, D.C. experience. And so I noticed that you were not only, you worked with the mayor of D.C., but you also worked with three members of Congress, including Nancy Pelosi. And so can I have you reflect on a little bit of your experiences there, if you will? And I have another question, which is, I mean, things seem so divided now, and it probably, you can tell since I have a I voted sticker that it's November 3rd when we're doing this tape. Things are so divided now. Is it different then, or what were your impressions? And tell us a little bit about your experiences there.
Well, I did have the really good fortune of working for a number of very good elected officials back in Washington, D.C., including the former mayor of Washington, D.C., Adrian Fenty, along with our speaker, Nancy Pelosi. And in addition to that, another member of Congress, Jackie Spear, who represents San Francisco as well, in addition to Gwen Moore, who represents Milwaukee. And working in Washington really was the privilege of a lifetime to be in the room where it happens, so to speak, where decisions are made, to come to understand how these elected members of Congress go about their business of crafting legislation, trying to find compromise when needed and necessary, which is more often than not, and really advocating on behalf of the people who sent them to Washington, D.C. I think one of the greatest takeaways for me from my time on Capitol Hill specifically was you really come to understand how the sausage gets made, so to speak. And you also come to understand that there are a lot of other things associated with the legislative process beyond simply understanding the machinery of how to introduce a bill and how to do amendments. Some of it, to your point about whether things were different before, really has to do with relationships and your ability to work with people both within your own caucus and also across the aisle. And I think a lot of that has gotten lost, obviously, in the last few years, but I don't think it's a lost art. And I think people ultimately understand that if we are going to get things done, and this is true for our client, we're going to have to really be able to work with a broad cross-section of people. And I was able to do that in my time on Capitol Hill. And I will say specifically, when I worked for the mayor of Washington, D.C., I worked very frequently with folks on both sides of the aisle because Washington, D.C. is in a unique position such that Congress has some measure of oversight. And so we needed to be able to speak confidently and competently with people from all backgrounds, from all over the country, regardless of their party, to work on behalf of the residents of Washington, D.C.
Now, you have to promise me that post-pandemic, at some point, if we both find ourselves in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure we will on some project, because I've sometimes found myself there on projects, you will show me some of the secret old watering holes that are famous in Washington.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but I did want to ask you, are there any fun facts about you that you can share? In other words, something that I don't know, perhaps, or something that others might know.
You know, I thought a lot about this, and I guess one thing that came to mind that I can share is that I wrote my first legal document when I was probably in middle school. For some reason, I had a bit of a fear of flying, and we were going on a family trip, quick flight ski trip to Reno. And for some bizarre reason, I thought, well, this seems like the perfect opportunity to draft a will, because if anything happens to me, I want to make sure that everything that I own will go to the appropriate person. And sure enough, I drafted a little document. I stuck it in my drawer. We went on the ski trip. Everything was fine. Months later, my father comes to me with this very somber look on his face and holding this note, and he says, "Jamal, I want to know, is everything okay? Is there anything going on that you want to talk to me about?" And I said, "Oh, you mean this perfectly reasonable will that 11-year-old drafted? Like, no, don't worry about that. Everything is fine." We talked about it, and I've become a much better flyer. But that's a little fun fact that you didn't
Oh,
know.
okay. I mean, did you double check it against all the requirements for a holographic will validity and all of
I didn't
that?
know any of that until I took my wills and trust class in law school, but it may or may not have survived.
Well, Jamal Anderson, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you. And I look forward to practicing with you for many years to come.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce you to my partner, Ruth Bond, who heads our investigations group at Rennie Public Law Group. And we're just going to have a conversation about some of Ruth's background. And Ruth, I pulled your resume. It's absolutely stellar. Makes mine look terrible. I mean, you've got a number of years, obviously, in the San Francisco City Attorney's Office. You were in big law at Heller Ehrman. You clerked in the United States District Court. You went to Yale for undergrad, and you went to New York University for your JD. Very impressive resume, so congratulations.
Thank you. All right.
But the one thing I wanted to start out at, and the thing that sort of jumps off the page for me is, and I always look sort of towards the bottom of resumes, and you were a journalist, and you spent time at a paper called the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Was that your undergraduate degree? And tell us a little bit about your journalism background, and of course that has a crossover, obviously, to your investigations practice. But tell us about that.
Sure. So right out of college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I actually didn't know I wanted to be a lawyer for a few years after college. And so I'd always enjoyed writing. I was a history major at Yale. My mother's a writer. And so I got this opportunity in Washington, D.C. to be a news clerk at the New York Times Washington Bureau. And that was kind of through a college friend. And so I took it. I wasn't sure, as I said, what I wanted to do at that point. So I took that job and was basically working at the heels of some of the best reporters at the time, and making phone calls for them, proofreading copy, just being a general assistant in the Washington Bureau. And so that's kind of how I got the journalism bug. That was my first foray. And I also got to write a few articles with no byline. It always said special to the New York Times, but I at least got to write. And then I decided, well, maybe this is what I want to do, and stayed there for a couple of years. Then got a job at a weekly newspaper in DC, where I got to write articles with my name on them and do some investigative work. And then from there, soon thereafter, got a job at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, thinking that, hey, I need to go out into the world and work for a local paper and do some beat reporting. And from there, I, again, was really drawn to investigative reporting, and realized at that point that I really could use a better knowledge of laws, and how things worked and how laws impacted different things. And that's how I got interested in law school and started thinking about law. Yeah.
It's interesting. My wife, as you know, is a journalism professor, and a strong background in journalism, and I've learned a little bit about it. And one of the things she's had me do is teach in her class as a guest lecturer about the law. I mean, understanding how do you access stories about litigation, the difference between civil litigation and criminal litigation, what's a docket, and so forth. It's been fun, but so you didn't just go into the law because of the money. You went in because
right.
Because I know firsthand that journalists are not exactly well paid in this world unless you're, you know, TV journalist or something like that. So
Right, right.
so like many of us at Rennie Public Law Group, you spent a fair amount of time, 14 years in your case, at the San Francisco City Attorney's Office, working under our friend and mentor Dennis Herrera, who currently the elected city attorney. Tell us about that experience, would you? I mean, what jumps out at you as something that you would like to share with our friends?
Sure. Well, you know, as many people know, that it's a great office. It does very impactful work on behalf of the people of San Francisco. And I mean, for me, I guess I went there after practicing 3 or 4 years, and it just, the opportunity you get there to be a lawyer and to be a lawyer in the public interest and to do it in the place that you live was just unparalleled. You know, I walked in the door and was handed a few cases and basically told that I had to, you know, litigate those cases from A to Z. And with frankly, not a lot of experience doing that. I had been at a big firm where I got a piece of a case or a research memo or, you know, a very small part of it, and to be handed the whole thing. And, you know, for a city that is serving the public, yeah, it was a great opportunity to just really learn to be a lawyer, you know, to strategize and to write every motion and to argue every motion and to take every deposition. It was a great experience, not to mention Dennis Herrera has just done a fantastic job, you know, and kind of built on Louise Rennie's legacy. And, you know, that office is just sort of unparalleled in the country, I think. So it was a great opportunity.
So in terms of your investigations practice, I know for a fact that you have a number of them going right now, and so I won't go into those investigations because they're confidential and so forth. And in fact, I'm just going to turn to one thing on your resume, which I find interesting. Like many others at the Rennie Public Law Group, you are interested in community involvement and giving back to the community. And you have an organization that you're involved in called Friends of the Children. And you're on the board of directors of Friends of the Children. Tell us about the Friends of the Children. And I think you can take this opportunity to make a plug for donations if you'd like. Give us the elevator speech about what's Friends of the Children and how does someone give to that organization or participate in that organization if they would like to.
Okay, so Friends of the Children is a national organization. There are several chapters around the country. I'm on the board of the San Francisco chapter, and the goal of Friends of the Children is to identify children in underserved communities who have some of the greatest challenges and provide them professional mentors who work with them from kindergarten, ideally through elementary school and beyond, to help them succeed in school and in their communities. They work with their families, they work with the teachers, and it's had great success. The San Francisco chapter is only about 3 years old, but the first chapter in Oregon has been around for many, many more years and has had great success in, you know, getting underserved kids through school all the way through high school and then being successful members of their community. So, and right now during COVID-19, Friends of the Children, the organization and the families it serves have really, really struggled, as you can imagine. Not great access to technology, so distance learning has been difficult. You know, it's just been really challenging. So now more than ever, Friends of the Children could use your support.
So Ruth, in terms of giving people the opportunity to give to the organization, may I just say that the website is www.friendssfbayarea.org, or
That's right.
just Google it, Friends of the Children Bay Area, and it will pop up, and there are plenty of opportunities to give. One of the things that I'll just tell a personal story. Louise, Rennie, and I used to go to opening day at Candlestick Park, and we would take the bus from City Hall. And I'll never forget one time I was with Louise, and we were talking about what the plans were for the kids. And I said, well, I was thinking, we'd go public school early on, and then I would save, and then we would invest in college. And she said, well, you're thinking of that backwards, Art. You need to invest early in your kids' education, because those are the formative years, and those are the years when the kids are most impressionable. And it really made an impression on me, because that's what we ended up doing. Anyway, friendsofthechildren.org, you got your plug. So lastly, we all know that you have this fantastic resume, tons of experience, but tell us a fun fact. Tell us something about Ruth Bond that the average person would not know.
Let's see. I think the average person might not know that I was a certified aerobics instructor for many years, and that's how I made money during law school and stayed fit and worked off the stress of law school. So a lot of people don't know that about me.
I didn't know that you had that fitness. So when you say certified aerobics instructor, would you do like step work and things like that?
Yep, I did step, I did sculpting, I did some spinning, I did yeah, just general, you go to the gym. I was the instructor in the gym, yelling at people. 10 more reps, 10 more. Yeah.
Getting to know you, I can imagine that. So Ruth Bond, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your very busy day and introducing yourself to our colleagues in the community. And take care. It is my pleasure to introduce Linda Ross to the Calpelra community and others who may be having the opportunity to view this video. Linda and I have worked together for many years. She is a true super lawyer. I mean, she's been named by the Daily Journal as one of California's top 75 labor and employment lawyers. She just received the award for the top 100 women lawyers in California. And she really does bring a wealth of experience to the Rennie Public Law Group, as well as the investigations team in particular. So Linda, welcome. Looking at your resume, and we were preparing for this, you mentioned a very interesting little tidbit to me that's not on the resume, and that is you were a fact checker for Rolling Stone magazine, and then a subsequent book, I guess, published by Rolling Stone. I think fact checking has something to do with investigations, number one, but tell us about that experience, and that's just very cool in my view.
Yes, when I came out to California, I had some friends who were writers and editors at Rolling Stone, and they helped me get a job there. And so I was a fact checker. I think most people know about fact checkers at the New Yorker magazine, which I think began the whole fact checking industry. And people wouldn't think that Rolling Stone would have fact checkers, but we were very serious about it. And we fact checked everything. And one of my first jobs was fact checking the Rolling Stone History of Rock and Roll, which is, you can get in hardcover and paperback still. And that was great. I actually called up Chuck Berry on the phone and asked him some questions. Yeah. I actually called everybody. I was young. I had no idea. I just got their phone numbers and I just called them up and went over the information.
So I recently watched the David Crosby biography, if you will, or it was a retrospective on his life. And he was admitting some of the things he did back in the days. And one of the things when he was really kind of into the drugs, if you will, as I understood it, he stole a friend's car, sold it for cocaine, And then he, actually, I'm not going to get the story right, so maybe this can be cut. But
I can fact check that one.
yeah, you could fact check that one. But moving on in terms of, I mean, that's really cool. We could talk a long time about that, but we have a limited time space here. One thing that jumps out, of course, is 20 years at the San Francisco City Attorney's Office, working for two city attorneys, Louise Rennie, who's now our partner, and Dennis Herrera, who is the current elected city attorney and a good friend of ours. And you had some really, really high level jobs there. Chief labor attorney for a number of years, in charge of a 20-person legal team representing basically throughout the city, boards and commissions. General counsel to the police department, giving you a particular expertise with police issues. And then you're general counsel to the mayor's office, working with Gavin Newsom. And I was going to ask you about that. How was that? I mean, you work with the governor. Is he on your speed dial? I mean, do you talk to him very often?
Well, mayors are pretty busy. And what you mostly do as general counsel to the mayor is you work with the chief of staff and you work with the mayor's spokesperson, because they're the people who are there day to day handling all the problems. So worked quite a bit with Steve Cava, the mayor's chief of staff, and some with the mayor also, and the mayor's spokesperson. A big part of the job of being general counsel to a high-level public official is working with the people who are responsible for making the public statements about what's going on. So that part was really great. I worked with Nate Ballard a lot. So it was very fast-paced. Every day was something new, exciting. You couldn't anticipate it from day to day. So it was a really, really great job.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And anyway, I think I convinced you, at some point to come work for another firm. We've worked for a couple firms, and now we started this firm in 2018, Rennie Public Law Group. And a large, significant part of your practice is investigations. And can you tell us a little bit about your approach, and how do you approach an investigation? Is it one size fits all, or do you have any particular protocols that you put in place, or what do you say?
Well, the most important thing to do, and we're in the process of doing for a new investigation, is to establish the scope of the investigation. What is it you are looking at? Because otherwise, you can just get lost in it. So that's really important. What is the scope? And then to deal with it in an efficient way. What we like to do is zero in on exactly what we have to do, who we have to talk to, and try and get it done efficiently. So that's the most important thing, is scope.
And I know firsthand that the clients are always concerned about doing this thing fast. Everything has to be done by, yesterday, which is, there's a tension with thoroughness on the one hand. On the other hand, I've always admired your ability to sort of not going on and on and on, because you can actually go on and on and on forever if you want to. I mean, some of these investigations really don't have a reasonable end unless you're a reasonable person, which you are.
Hopefully we're not like remember the Ken Starr investigation?
Who could forget?
Bill Clinton went on and on and on, cost millions of dollars. Anyway, we try and stay away from that.
That's the opposite of what we do.
Right.
So kind of moving to I'll call it another fun fact. I didn't know about the Rolling Stone magazine piece, but which is very interesting. And I learned that today, but I always knew you were a true golden bear. You went to undergraduate at the University of California, Berkeley. You went to law school at Berkeley Law, and you were right there with when the big game happened in 1982. And coincidentally, my daughter called me yesterday and asked, Dad, were you at the big game, this 1982 big game? Because she saw a clip and she saw what happened. It was really an exciting time. I was there, by the way. And I wanted to know if you were there too, because we hadn't met at that point, but were you in the stadium?
That's very funny. I was in my last year of law school. I was in the library.
Did you hear the
In
cry?
fact, I was in the library through all those games because the law school was right across the street from the stadium. So we always heard the games, but
You must-
no, I was in the library.
You must have heard the cheering that went on when Cal won the game at the last minute, and who could forget Joe Starkey's famous call of that game. Well, Linda, I want to thank you, and again, it's my pleasure to work with you and have you as my partner. And thank you for giving me your time today to let us know, let others know a little bit more about you.
Okay, thank you.